My friends, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know when I say we're in a culture war. But the controlled media has divided it into conservative and liberal. When you pull back from that and study the different congressional hearings and other key documents on Operation Mockingbird and other CIA operations, you learn that there are big foundations, multinational corporations, think tanks, intelligence agencies, private corporate criminal groups, and others that for the last 100 years have been meeting in large global conferences discussing aligning their interest to bring in a one world corporate government. Now, they've had some wars with each other. They've had some major disagreements. And that's still going on to this day. The Anglo-American establishment, the Chinese, now the Communist Chinese, and of course the Russians. The Germans for a time vied to be a fourth group and were destroyed, conquered, assimilated, and now are used as the slave engine of the EU, the core of world government. That said, we talk a lot about the info war. And we talk about how we're having big victories fighting mainstream news, dinosaur media. But I've talked also a lot about the fact that most propaganda is in movies, is in fiction television, fiction novels. That's where the real war is going on. We have to focus more and more on the propaganda, on the messages. And when you look at the messages that dominate the so-called spectrum of fiction that's being pushed by the big six media companies, it's anti-private property, it's anti-free will, it's anti-family, it's anti-self-defense, it's anti-free choice, it is anti-true classical liberalism. And I've been hammering on this real liberal versus fake liberal. We've had a major breakthrough. So what I'm about to cover here is one of the major keys to unlocking all of this. But you have to unlock it. And what I'm going to point out is something a lot of you already know. We've seen articles in the Washington Times and the LA Times and others about closeted libertarians and conservatives in Hollywood and how they have secret meetings. I have been led into some of those, quote, secret meetings. It's just small groups of people getting together and talking about the paradigm. And they've told me about even larger groups that they've met in, secret intellectual circles of what you would call some of the most truly liberal people out there who are bullied and threatened into being establishment liberals, or they're told you won't get any more roles no matter how many hits you've had. Now, Hollywood's lost some of its power over the years and has become decentralized to a certain extent. Not completely, but partially. It's moved to Canada, moved to Texas, moved to New Zealand, other areas. So there's a little more courage now to tell the truth. But the true liberals in Hollywood don't like the fact that they have to then join the conservatives, which are just as bad in most respects, the rhinos. Now, you know I've had a lot of big Hollywood people on the show, from Viggo Mortensen to basically you name it. And a lot of big stars have tweeted or talked about how they like Alex Jones. But the really big ones, people even bigger than some of the folks I've had on, are scared to come out and scared to go public. To the point of like every few weeks now, a major Hollywood star reaches out to me one way or another, but are always like, but just don't tell anybody that we're on board. Well, I already know you're on board. And you're not on board with Alex Jones or Infowars.com. We're just a focal point. And every time I talk to these folks, they're not just listening to me, they're dialed into all of it, more than I am in many respects. They're smarter than I am in many ways, more eloquent, better looking. They could change the world. And they're getting ready to doing it. People are really tired of what's happening. They're tired of the global fascism that comes from both parties. They see the same stuff in Europe. They're upset. But they understand there's cultural bullying going on, and that's what modern fake liberalism is. It's not whacked out that they want to ban brown paper bags and pull down Thomas Jefferson statues and ban the words mother and father, he and she, boy or girl. You think that's too extreme. It's meant to be extreme to break our will to accept anything. Now, I've already said most of this. What I'm getting at is that there's a culture war going on. The globalists pump out all this mindless confusion and garbage and infighting and controlled left and controlled right so that people just tune out and don't have any hope. I'm here to tell you there's major hope. And we have to realize how popular the anti-globalist, pro-human, new Renaissance movement, as I branded it, is. The new Enlightenment. The second wave. It's here. And all of this tyranny we see is an admitted attempt. I mean, the globalist white papers are public. We cover them on air all the time. They're admitting they're in a war against true cultural freedom. I mean, you look at what comes out of the Democratic Party that's the dominant culture in America, that's the dominant culture in the world. It is Jim Jones level programming, and it's meant to be. I had a top professor on just yesterday who heads up the Asian Studies Department at UC Davis. He went to the Rockefeller program, and he says, no, it's an admitted Maoist program actually following Mao tactics in the meetings to brainwash and screw up the young people. And to take all their faith and love for humanity and twist it. That's why you see these zombies out breaking up free speech events. They look so upset and so crazy and so wild-eyed because they've been screwed with, folks, with high-tech sciences. So here's what I'm getting at. I've talked a lot about voting with your dollars, voting with your mouth, voting with your feet, voting with what you support, but also what you produce. You need to do your own YouTube channels or set up your own video systems, whatever. You need to invade these corporate systems and then push their traffic back towards your alternative site. Not that you're going to have all the answers, but you'll be another point that isn't within the system for us to get back to a real reality by pinging info off each other, not just the controlled feedback loop that the globalists are pushing at us. And what made me think about this was a couple things the last few days. One big one was yesterday we put out a fun little ad video. We got to fund ourselves. The globalists act like it's bad for any new cultural movement to have its own funding. They tax us and use our money against us. It's bad if we, with free will, write a book or make a film or sell a product. Again, trying to intimidate us as if we can't have ideas. When we have ideas, it's a conspiracy theory. When we have an opinion or a taste, it's a conspiracy theory or extreme. Or when we build our own system and are successful, it's bad. Well, of course, that's what they say. But we shot this video of some of my friends barefoot skiing, and they love one of our products. And a minority of the comments were like, how dare you be water skiing when everything's falling apart? You need to be fighting the New World Order. This from people that, I went and looked at their channels, have done nothing. They're like playing video games and stuff. Fine, just don't judge me. Part of winning the fight against the tyrants is not being a bunch of scared, upset people in secret meetings. It's part of going out, having fun, creating our own culture, our own music. I might write a book that's just humor with nothing in it about the New World Order. Then folks will come find my serious work. You know, all of us need to express our humanity, make art, not just be into fighting the Federal Reserve. We need to do that too. But we need to be balanced. We need to be fun. We need to be the true liberals of culture, the true Americana that the world loved and wanted to come here to be part of. Call it paleo-conservative, call it libertarian, whatever you want to call it. Live and let live. Tolerant, but I don't have to adopt your way of living. I'm not going to be conquered by you. Whether you're some super right-wing group that wants women to wear skirts down to their feet, or some radical Muslim group that wants to mutilate women and put bags on their heads, or whether you be some other weird, cult or some liberal PC group that wants to teach 5-year-olds, how to wear dresses. These are all just unhappy cults pushing their agenda on those of us, the producers. It's time for us to stand up and shrug this off our shoulders and to be proud that we're building a new culture. The globalists don't want you to have a culture. They want you to just have no culture, be afraid, watch TV, and let them program you. I'm saying be your culture, be yourself, really produce what comes from your heart. Produce art, produce literature, stand up, believe in yourself. Don't let Madison Avenue tell you you're junk. They always make you feel inadequate, then they sell you their solution that will make you adequate. And again, that just ties back into this point that we're supposed to be losers. We're supposed to be underground. We're supposed to not be successful. I cannot tell you, in my 20 years on air, 21 years in just a few months, in April coming up, 21 years, I cannot tell you the success I've had, the people we've touched because of you spreading the word and others. And now it's just reached a crescendo level where so many incredible, enlightened people that are involved in so many good causes, but haven't gone to the next level of really being public about what they truly believe because they know the public's been dumbed down into a controlled paradigm. Well, the answer is fighting back against that paradigm and just saying, I don't care if a bunch of people don't understand it. I don't care if a bunch of people get confused by it. I'm not going to be bullied anymore, and I'm going to put out complex info to raise the dialogue. The globalists admit, they've had a great Frontline piece on this years ago about a feedback loop, where they put garbage out on purpose to dumb the debate down. It's not we're dumb, so they dumb the debate down. Now we've reached that level. Mission accomplished to a certain extent. We've hit the bottom, now let's go back up. But before it was dumb the message down to dumb you down. The message is the medium. versus the medium is the message. It's both, but they dumb it down to make you dumb until you accept it, until you're immersed in it as a weapon against your free will. So all the big Hollywood stars out there that are true classical liberals in the Thomas Jefferson vein, in the trailblazing vein, you need to go public. And if you want to do it in a safe space, to use that term, in a taped interview or have somebody else do it or whatever, it's time. I mean, I'm just shooting this here at my cousin's condo, with he and his wife. We're not doing it some big fancy production. Maybe it's off the cuff. Maybe you test the waters. But the amazing things you stand for, the eloquent statements you've made, those need to be heard by the world. I mean, the fact that somebody like Jeff Bridges is awake to the New World Order for years and is a listener of my show, that's a big deal. And I haven't even reached out to Jeff Bridges yet. He was with some folks that reached out the other night. I missed the call. But the point is that Jeff Bridges, I'm sure if he comes out against the globalists, will get targeted. But we're already all being targeted anyways. It's time for all those big names. People even bigger than Jeff Bridges. It's hard to believe there's anybody bigger than Jeff Bridges. There's certainly nobody cooler. The dude. Starman, Tron, the whole 9 yards. But there are people bigger when it comes to money, bigger in music, as big as it gets. You think of the top, they're awake. And they just said, nope, we just can't handle it, we can't come on air. And that was years ago. And I understand all that. It's just, this is so exciting to me when I'm talking about it. It's even cold in here. I started sweating because this is so epic what's going on in this world. It's so huge. And we're going to lose our future. We're going to lose our souls. We're going to lose our humanity. We're going to lose it all if we don't say no to this fraudulent system and the tyranny that is the controlled left, the controlled right. And so we are the winners. The liberty movement is popular. It's surging. That's why they got all these subliminal messages targeting me in the media and others. It's why they're doing all these hit pieces and misrepresenting what I and others say. It's because they're scared. Well, the people serving the system, I talk to generals, top producers, most of them don't want to serve the evil. They just don't have faith in humanity. Well, here's the deal. Humanity, on average, are followers. I'm talking to leaders out there. Whether you're a school principal or a police chief or a fire department chief or deputy chief or a doctor, a psychologist, people we think of as leaders, a preacher, a pastor, buck this corporate down destruction of society. Say no, be yourself. Don't follow what I say, because what I'm saying is follow your common sense. There's just so many amazing people that are awake. And then I think about when I was on a plane years ago flying to be on The View. I'll say this in closing. In first class, I'm sitting there, I was explaining why I'm in first class. Some little cultural Marxist thing, and I shouldn't be in first class. But the point is, they're flying up to be on The View, and there's the head. He knew who I was, sitting right beside me in first class, the head of one of the major banks, one of the biggest, top 5. And I'm like, is this who I think it is? And then he figures out who I am, and we have like an hour discussion, because it's a 3-hour flight to New York, but we only really talked the last hour. And I've told the story many times, but just to paraphrase it, he just said, you don't get it. Humanity does evolve. You think they'll evolve and adapt and overcome what we're doing to them. People say, well, say his name. No, he said this is in confidence, so I can't break that. That's a journalism 101. He said, humanity will adapt to being enslaved. You don't get it. We slowly enslave you. That's why we do it slow, so you adapt and learn to submit to that, and then you love it. And he said the corporations are going to govern the planet, and we know how to do it best. And he was cynical, and he had his jacket, suit on perfectly, like it was a mannequin. He got up, put on his perfect, he was like a robot, and looked at me disdainfully and laughed as he walked off that plane in front of me. And that's who those people are. They don't have faith in humanity. Well, I do. But beyond that, there are people who could have joined that evil banker and been manipulative and been more powerful than him, but they had humanity and they didn't. Because you're humble. You don't want to dominate. I understand that. But you got to get the bully off of you. You got to get the bully off the little guys too. You got to stand up to these guys because you've got the power. You've got the light in the dark of the night. We've all got to do it. The general public, movie stars, politicians, all of you, we got to transcend. That's my rant. This is how we can defeat the globalists, take over the culture. We are the culture. Liberty is the culture. Our roots are still here. They can spring back up. They may have cut this tree down, but it's growing back. It's growing back right in front of us. Let's water it. Let's take care of it. We can do it. Look at what we're the alternative to, this new world order. Look how crappy it is. Look at what it has to offer. Look at the politicians falling apart. Look at both parties. Look at the global elite. They're a joke. They're only strong because we've laid down. It's time to awaken and come out of the coma. It's time for humanity to rise to the stars and beyond.